the headlines this hour on VTV News. Party General Secretary philosophy on putting people at the center of development. And better care given to revolutionary contributors. In our world news, U.S. Democratic Party to choose candidate to replace President Joe Biden.
Broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. VTV News starts right now.
Hello, it's 8 a.m. local time in Hanoi. You're watching VTV News. During his lifetime, President Ho Chi Minh emphasized the philosophy of putting the interests of the people above all else. Under the party leadership headed by Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng, the Communist Party has demonstrated its mettle and wisdom, serve the people, and build a truly moral and civilized society.
The consistent thought of Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng always placed the people at the center. He always affirmed that our party must take care of the material and spiritual life of the people. The party's approach that does not reflect the interests of the people, the country, the nation, and is not in line with the evolutionary laws of history is the wrong approach.
We must turn the important decisions of this party Congress into reality. This is just the beginning. The success of the Congress is measured upon how effectively we can bring wealth and happiness to the people.
One of the legacy of Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng are the resolutions on socio-economic development, national defense and security of the 6 economic regions across the country until 2030, with a vision to 2045. In 2023, the GDP reached about $430 billion, becoming the 5th largest economy in ASEAN and 35th among the 40 largest economies in the world. GDP per capita is about $4,300. Total import-export turnover reached nearly $700 billion. Vietnam became the 22nd largest global trading partner and one of the leading ASEAN countries in attracting FDI. The poverty rate is 2.93% according to the multi-dimensional poverty standard. 78% of communes meet new rural standards. More than 1,900 kilometers of highways are put into use. Vietnam's ranking on the Global Happiness Index in 2023 was 65th out of 137 countries.
For more than 13 years, General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng, together with the Politburo, has set out very important directions and left very strong marks for the country's economic development. These are truly the driving forces for Vietnam's strong economic growth.
Under the leadership of the General Secretary and the leadership of our party, Vietnam has gradually stabilized the macroeconomy, maintained growth rates, and maintained inflation for more than 10 years. Therefore, international investors assess Vietnam as a country with stable prospects. As a result, we attract many direct and indirect investors along with domestic investment.
Our country has never had such a potential position in international prestige as today. We did it thanks to the creativity of persistent and continuous joint efforts of the party, people, and military.
Contributing to the achievements of Vietnam's socio-economic development is the important role of General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng. The entire party, people, and army will stay united and unified and join efforts to complete the goal of becoming a developed, high-income, socialist-oriented country by 2045 when the nation celebrates its 100th founding anniversary.
Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng, great contribution to the revolutionary cause of the party and the nation have left deep impressions and affection not only from party members and people nationwide, but also from overseas Vietnamese.
Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng has had radical and timely policy to care for the overseas Vietnamese community, helping them to feel attached to their homeland. It has encouraged us to contribute to the development of our homeland and country. He has devoted his whole life to serving the country and its people. We would like to express our deep gratitude for his tireless contribution to the development of Vietnam.
Overseas Vietnamese acknowledge the efforts of the party General Secretary in enhancing national unity as well as connecting overseas Vietnamese with the country. Today, I have also seen letters and shares from many people, including overseas Vietnamese and students in Thailand, expressing their deep condolences to him. He is an example of a true communist with tireless efforts for the revolutionary cause of the party and the nation.
Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng received respect and love from his people and has high prestige in the international arena. He always paid attention to the Vietnamese community abroad. His legacy and cultural heritage will be preserved and promoted for future generations.
State President Tô Lâm expressed the most sincere and deepest gratitude to heroic Vietnamese mothers, war invalids, flying soldiers, revolutionary contributors, and their families while receiving a delegation of national devotees in Hanoi on Monday. The event was organized in commemoration ahead of the 77th anniversary of War Invalids and Martyrs Day, July 27.
At the start of meeting, State President Tô Lâm and the delegates observed a minute of silence to commemorate Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng. Expressing his most profound gratitude, the state president said over the past 77 years, the Vietnamese party and state had issued a number of policies and guidelines to support war invalids, sick soldiers, and martyr relatives, and those who render service to the revolution. Since 2013, nearly $329.1 million has been raised to support families of revolution contributors. Over $501.2 million has been used for the construction and repair of nearly 114,000 houses. More than 110,000 saving books has been presented to policy beneficiary families. State President Tô Lâm has called on authorities and organizations to continue following the party guidelines and the state policies so that war veterans, relatives of martyrs, and policy beneficiary families can enjoy all achievements of the nation renewal cause, leaving no one behind. He also called for continued efforts to remedy post-war consequences, search for the remains of martyrs, improving health care for those who are lonely and without support. The goal is to ensure that all revolutionary contributors have a living standard above the local average and fulfill benefit from existing policies.
Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính has called for the completion of the 500 kV Circuit 3 transmission line on the occasions of the 79th anniversary of August Revolution and National Day, September 2nd. The Prime Minister made this request at an online meeting to review the construction progress of the 500 kV Circuit 3 transmission line from Quảng Trạch, Quảng Bình to Phố Nối, Hưng Yên. This is the fourth meeting in the past 6 months chaired by the Prime Minister to oversee this very important project.
At the start of the meeting, Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính and delegates observed a minute of silence to commemorate General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng. Reports presented at the meeting showed that the project has largely completed critical tasks, including the construction of the transformer station, the handover of the entire route site, the provision of materials, and the deployment of pole and wire pulling equipment. Additionally, over 1,000 poles have been installed. Chairing the meeting, the Prime Minister said the project holds significance to socio-economic development, national defense security, and social welfare of localities it serves. He urged ministries, agencies, localities, and units to redouble their efforts, strengthen unity, boost determination and effectiveness to complete the project with the high sense of responsibility. He has urged for the completion of the 500 kilovolt Circuit 3 transmission line by the 79th anniversary of August Revolution and National Day, September the 2nd. Specific tasks were also assigned to relevant ministries, agencies, and others to ensure that all aspects of the projects are carried out smoothly and on time.
Deputy Prime Minister Chen Liu-Quang hosted a reception for Special Advisor to the Japan-Vietnam Parliamentary Friendship Alliance, Takebi Toshitomu, in Hanoi on Monday. He praised Takebi's contribution to the Vietnam-Japan relationship, particularly the Vietnam-Japan University project. He assured that the government is committed to resolving any obstacles related to the project. The Deputy Prime Minister also appreciated the idea of allowing Vietnam-Japan University graduates to intern in Japan and expressed hope that the Japanese government, businesses and organizations would continue to support the university and its graduates, thereby enhancing the quality of education and training. Coming up next on VTV News, Storm Prapirun intensify move toward northern Vietnam. And devotees in DNA testing of martyrs' remains. As of 6 p.m. on Monday, the storm center was about 120 kilometers southeast of the Quảng Ninh-Hải Phòng coast. It is expected to maintain strong winds with gusts up to level 13 through the night of Monday. By this morning, Tuesday, the storm center is expected to make a landfall along the Quảng Ninh-Hải Phòng coast and gradually weaken. Strong winds and high waves will continue in the Gulf of Tonkin, including Bạch Long Vĩ and Cô Tô Islands, with winds of level 6 to 8, and near the storm center, level 9 to 10, with gusts up to level 13. Waves will be 2 to 4.5 meters high, causing very abrupt seas. Workers have completed handover nearly 1,200 column foundation positions and all 513 corridor anchorages for the 500 kilovolt Circuit 3 transmission line project from Quảng Trạch, Quảng Bình to Phố Nối, Hưng Yên. Despite having to work in difficult weather conditions with great efforts and determination, the entire project is in the final stages of completion.
This is position 266 of package 31 of the 500 kilovolt line Quảng Trạch Quỳnh Lưu section. Due to heavy rain and thunderstorms, the construction work had to be temporarily stopped. However, as soon as the rain stopped, the workers hastily resumed their work.
When it rains, the construction work is temporarily stopped to ensure electricity safety. When the rain stopped, we rushed back to work.
For the Quảng Trạch Quỳnh Lưu and Quỳnh Lưu Thanh Hóa sections, which are two of the four important component projects, the pole erection work has reached 90%. The rest is being completed to tension the wires simultaneously. This is a stage that requires meticulousness and technique, and construction work is facing difficulties in weather conditions like the present. So the electricity industry is making every effort to bring the project to the finish line.
The weather is sometimes very harsh. At the moment, it is raining and windy. We are trying to bring the project to the finish line soon. If the heavy rain continues, we will switch to other work that can be done simultaneously. If it rains lightly, we will go to the construction site 28.
Currently, the wire tensioning work is being carried out in parallel with the installation of the remaining poles, so project progress will be assured according to the instructions of the National Power Transmission Corporation, and we also ensure our commitment with the government.
Along with the efforts of the investors and the construction unit, the coordination and support of the local government and people also greatly contributed to speeding up the project progress. The construction forces are striving to race against time to ensure the progress and the technical quality as well as labor safety of the project.
Currently, Chà Vinh province has achieved 8 out of 8 of the new rural province criteria. This locality is organizing to collect people's opinion on the completions of the task of building new rural areas. This is the final step for Chà Vinh province to complete procedures to request the government to recognize the province as a new rural province.
At the age of over 60, Thach Vien is very excited to see his homeland change every day. The process of building new rural areas has brought great benefits to the people here.
Building roads, bridges, schools with electricity and water provided to serve local people is very good.
To get people's satisfaction with the completion of the new rural province, the investigators asked a set of 9 questions. People are free to give their personal opinions.
I'm very excited. Focusing on building new rural area changes everything. We have better life.
Chà Vinh province is collecting opinions from the people in 31 communes in all districts, towns, and cities in the province. Determining the people's will and spirit of consensus is an important factor in building new rural areas. Nearly 36,000 ballots were delivered directly to people's homes.
If we open a conference, there will be a tendency for many people to listen to a certain opinion. Thus, it will not be able to evaluate the objectivity in people's opinions.
The results of consulting people's satisfaction about completing the task of building new rural areas are the basis for Chà Vinh province to submit to the government for recognition as new rural province. Determining this as an important political task, the leaders of Chà Vinh province directed the implementation work to be serious to receive the consensus among the people.
Although there were initial successes, the DNA testing of martyrs' remains is still facing many challenges. If the martyrs' remains couldn't be gathered and identified, in about 10 years' time, the search will be almost hopeless. Therefore, many solutions are being implemented in the race against time.
The martyrs' bones are degenerating. Only 30% of remains samples are of good quality, and the success rate of DNA identification is even lower than this number. It is difficult not only because the remains samples are highly degenerated, but also there is lack of database and facilities to implement DNA testing.
The records do not include where martyrs are buried, which battlefields they fought on, and there is no relatives data. If we compared with millions of samples, it's very hard to get results. If the number of comparison samples is only a few hundred, the success rate is higher.
A martyrs' gene bank has been launched. To build this bank, relevant units will take samples of relatives of martyrs whose remains have not been identified and then genetically assess all martyrs whose remains are found.
When we have this gene bank, martyrs' identification depends only on the martyrs' relatives. So it will shorten the time to find the identities of martyrs.
Time is the enemy of those who are pursuing the DNA assessment of martyrs. They need larger investments in facilities, equipment, and mechanisms for this activity.
We request the government to increase the purchase of modern technological equipment and to add human resources for martyrs' identification.
According to statistics from the Ministry of Labor, Invalids, and Social Affairs, there are still more than 300,000 martyrs' remains nationwide that have been buried in cemeteries but whose identities have not been determined, and about 180,000 martyrs' remains that have not been found.
History serves as the vital link connecting generations of Vietnamese, both at home and abroad, to their roots and homeland. For young overseas Vietnamese, studying their country history not only enhances their understanding of their heritage, but also instills a profound love and pride for Vietnam.
Born in Nghệ An and having lived in Hungary for 9 years, these young overseas Vietnamese were excited to visit President Ho Chi Minh's hometown for the first time to learn about the life of the great national leader.
The most surprising thing to me is that his mother passed away when he was young, and he grew up in challenging circumstances. Being Vietnamese and from the same hometown as President Ho Chi Minh makes me proud. I felt emotional while paying respects to him, and this will surely be a cherished memory.
This year's summer camp is the first time many young overseas Vietnamese are learning about their nation's historical stories, figures, and origins, previously only known from their parents or books.
Before my return to Vietnam, I immersed myself in stories and poems to reconnect with my homeland. This trip has deepened my understanding of Vietnam and my roots.
As a Vietnamese living abroad, I am eager to delve into Vietnam's rich history, which I believe every Vietnamese person should understand and appreciate.
During the summer camp, young overseas Vietnamese visited the Vietnamese heroic mothers and paid their respects at the Martyrs' Cemetery. These experiences deepened their understanding of the realities of war and the efforts involved in building, preserving, and developing the country.
It's really emotional to us. I already experienced the Nha Trang in Hải Dương of my people. I've never seen so many soldiers as is today. Is a very good experience for me to learn the culture and pay respect to the soldiers.
I've never done something like that, like this, and I think it's I got a privilege to pay respect to the soldiers. Because of them, I think Vietnam is what it is right now, and why we have the freedom, and they fought for us so hard, and they died for us. So I think we should pay respect to them as much as we could.
Returning to their homeland and delving into its history fills overseas Vietnamese youth with pride, emotion, and respect. These experiences deepen their love and attachment to their homeland.
Coming up next in our war news, U.S. Democratic Party to choose candidate to replace President Joe Biden. And geopolitics surpasses inflation as a primary concern. After U.S. President Joe Biden announced that he would drop his re-election campaign, the Democratic Party said that the party will carry out a process to select a new replacement candidate. Vice President Kamala Harris, who was nominated by President Biden, is emerging as the prohibitive favorite to become the party nominee.
U.S. President Joe Biden dropped his re-election campaign in the context that there is only 4 months left until the election. His decision is considered a patriotic act by many Democratic members.
Joe Biden's presidency has been transformational. He accomplished more in the past 4 years: to bring back jobs, stand up to big corporations, and build an economy that works for all of us, than we have been able to get done in the last 40.
Many members of the Democratic Party also support President Biden's decision to nominate Vice President Kamala Harris to be the Democratic candidate to run against Republican nominee Donald Trump in the upcoming election.
I pledge my full support to ensure her victory in November.
The list of Democratic lawmakers supporting Kamala Harris has grown over time. However, some important figures such as Senate President Nancy Pelosi have not yet spoken. For her part, Vice President Kamala Harris announced that she will win the Democratic nomination and win the upcoming election. Although nominated by President Biden, Kamala Harris will have to go through a nomination process of Democratic Party and must win the support of a majority of delegates at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago next month.
China surprised markets by cutting major short and long-term interest rates on Monday. This move is intended to encourage commercial banks to grant loans at more preferential interest rates. The People's Bank of China said it would cut the 7-day reserve repo rate to 1.7% from 1.8% and would also improve the mechanisms for open market operations. The one-year loan prime rate was lowered to 3.35% from 3.45% previously, while the 5-year loan prime rate was reduced to 3.85% from 3.95%. Some financial experts on interest rate and foreign exchange believe that this move is to ensure economic growth for the whole year when GDP growth in the second quarter is slow. Geopolitics now trumps inflation as the biggest worry for sovereign wealth fund and central banks. An Invesco survey published on Monday showed some 83% of the survey respondents listed geopolitical tensions as their top near-term concern, surpassing the 73% who listed inflation. Geopolitical fragmentation and protectionism also tops the list of worries for the coming decade for 86% of respondents. The survey was conducted in the context of trade tension between the U.S. and China, as well as major elections in many countries could create new developments related to geopolitics. The confiscations of Russia frozen assets worth more than $300 billion by Western countries also made central banks feel insecure. Japan issued heat stroke alert in 39 out of country 47 prefectures on Monday, according to the Japan Meteorological Agency. Temperatures in many Japanese provinces and towns soared above 37 degrees Celsius, in some places nearly 39 degrees Celsius. High humidity is expected to increase the risk of heat-related diseases. Rising temperatures are causing an increase in the number of people, especially the elderly, being hospitalized due to heat stroke, and some have even died. People are advised not to exercise outdoors and pay attention to temperature indices. And now, as usual, let's continue with the weather forecast. And that's it for this hour on VTV News. To rewatch our program, you can log on to VTVgo.vn or download a mobile application VTVgo. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now.